This is every level of MMA cardio explained. Level 1. Level 1 is atrocious cardio. And I'm not talking about fighters who slow down a little in round 3, or guys who just prefer explosive bursts. I'm talking about fighters whose gas tank is so bad that the fight becomes a countdown the moment it starts. These are fighters who look terrifying for about 1 minute and then completely fall apart. Level 1 cardio is panic cardio. Every punch is thrown at full power. Every movement is stiff. There's no rhythm, no breathing, no pacing. They burn through their energy immediately because they don't know how to relax inside the cage. Once they're tired, everything disappears. Their defense collapses, their footwork vanishes, and their decision-making becomes pure desperation. And the king of level 1 cardio is Derrick Lewis. Derrick Lewis has never had good cardio. His entire career is built around the idea that the fight has to end early. If it doesn't, he's in trouble. His strategy is simple: explode, swing hard, hope something lands. Because if the fight goes long, his body simply can't keep up. The crazy thing is, it actually works sometimes. Lewis hits so hard that opponents are afraid to engage early. They respect the power. They give him space. And that allows him to conserve energy without even realizing it. But the moment someone forces him to move, the weakness is exposed. Watch what happened when Derrick Lewis fought Cyril Gane. Lewis gassed almost immediately. He stopped throwing. He stopped defending. And Gane was able to pick him apart effortlessly. Because when you don't have cardio, you don't have options. Level 1 fighters survive in the UFC for one reason. They're dangerous enough early that people don't want to test their gas tank. But once it gets tested, it collapses instantly. That's level 1 cardio. No pacing, no efficiency, just power and prayer. And it works until it doesn't. Level 2. Level 2 is bad cardio, but controlled bad cardio. These fighters at least understand that they can't sprint forever. They try to slow things down. They try to pace themselves. The problem is, the gas tank still isn't there. These fighters can look good for 1 round, sometimes even 2. But once the fight gets extended, the drop-off is obvious. Their output decreases. Their reactions slow. They start throwing single shots instead of combinations because that's all they can manage. Tai Tuivasa is the perfect example of level 2 cardio. Early in fights, Tai is explosive and dangerous. He pressures hard, throws heavy combinations, and can knock out anyone in the division. But if he doesn't get the finish, fatigue sets in quickly. His movement becomes labored, his hands drop, and his defense disappears. Against Cyril Gane, Tuivasa looked powerful early, but once Gane stayed calm and dragged the fight out, Tai had nothing left. He wasn't completely exhausted, but he wasn't effective either. And that's the danger of level 2 cardio. Level 2 fighters know pacing exists. They just don't have the engine to support it. They can survive early exchanges, but once the fight goes long, they're fighting uphill. That's level 2. Functional, but fragile. Level 3. Level 3 is decent cardio. These fighters can go 3 rounds without collapsing. They don't gas badly. They stay competitive late. But they're not overwhelming anyone with pace either. Level 3 fighters manage energy well enough to survive, but not well enough to dominate. They're comfortable if the fight stays technical, if the pace stays moderate, but once pressure increases, their limits start to show. Sean O'Malley is a great example of level 3 cardio. O'Malley can go the distance. He doesn't gas early, he stays sharp late, but his cardio works best when the fight stays at range and on the feet. When the fight turns into relentless pressure or constant grappling exchanges, the difference becomes obvious. Against Marlon Vera, O'Malley slowed down late. Against Merab Dvalishvili, the cardio gap was brutal. Merab pushed a pace that O'Malley simply could not match. Level 3 cardio keeps you competitive. It keeps you alive, but it doesn't let you impose your will. These fighters survive long fights, but they don't drown people. That's the ceiling. Level 4. Level 4 is good cardio. These fighters can fight hard for 3 rounds and still look strong at the end. They understand pacing. They understand recovery. They don't waste movement. They don't panic when the fight gets difficult. Leon Edwards represents level 4 cardio perfectly. Leon can fight at a high level for 5 rounds. His conditioning is solid. His breathing stays controlled. He doesn't visibly fade even in difficult fights. The issue with Leon has never been endurance. It's output. Leon doesn't always push the pace aggressively enough to weaponize his cardio. Against Kamaru Usman, when pressured heavily, Leon struggled to assert control for long stretches. He survived, but he didn't dominate. And that's the key distinction at this level. Level 4 fighters have championship-level endurance, but they don't always turn it into dominance. They can go long with anyone. They can stay composed under pressure, but they don't force chaos. They don't impose exhaustion on their opponent. They manage the fight rather than bending it to their will. That's what separates level 4 from the next tier. Level 5. Level 5 is elite cardio. These fighters don't just last. They use conditioning as a weapon. They understand that the longer the fight goes, the more it favors them. Kamaru Usman is the perfect example of level 5 cardio. At his peak, Usman could wrestle, clinch, strike, and pressure relentlessly for 5 rounds. His strength didn't fade. His output stayed high. And while opponents slowed down, Usman looked exactly the same. What separates level 5 from level 4 is intent. Level 5 fighters don't wait to see who tires first. They force the issue. They create fatigue through pressure, clinch work, and constant engagement. Even when nothing dramatic happens, the opponent is always working. By the later rounds, opponents aren't just tired, they're discouraged. They know every exchange costs them more than it costs the man in front of them. That's elite cardio. Not just endurance, but pressure-based dominance. Level 6. Level 6 cardio is rare. These fighters don't slow down, they speed up. Their output in round 4 and 5 is often higher than it was in round 1. Max Holloway is the perfect example of level 6 cardio. Max throws insane volume for 5 rounds straight. His pace is suffocating. There's no explosion phase and no decline phase. It's just relentless consistency. At a certain point, opponents realize that nothing they do is going to slow him down. That realization alone is exhausting. The body might still function, but the mind starts to crack. Doubt creeps in. Hope disappears. Max's cardio isn't just physical. It's efficiency, rhythm, and mentality. He stays relaxed while everyone else is drowning. His technique doesn't fall apart late. His timing stays sharp, and that's what makes him terrifying. Level 6 fighters don't just win late rounds, they break people in them. Level 7. Level 7 is the absolute pinnacle, the greatest cardio the sport has ever seen. Georges St-Pierre represents level 7 cardio. GSP could wrestle endlessly, strike efficiently, scramble constantly, and still look fresh deep into championship rounds. His energy management was flawless. Every movement had purpose. Nothing was wasted. That's why his cardio never failed him. It wasn't just conditioning, it was perfection. He didn't burn energy unnecessarily. He didn't chase exchanges without reason. The fight moved at his pace, not his opponent's. Level 7 fighters don't fade. They don't panic. They don't lose structure. They control the pace, the time, and the fight itself. Fatigue never becomes a factor because it's never allowed to. That's level 7.